oil change on the Murray flathead single cylinder engines. This may not look like your standard lawnmower, kind of because it's not, but inside it's the same engine that you're likely to see on Murray's, MTD's, Dynamarks, you name it. There was Craftsman, Cobalt, whatever brand you can think of. Briggs & Stratton Powerbuilt or Briggs & Stratton flathead single cylinder engines, they're all going to be roughly the same. These do not have oil filters, but they do have oil setups where you do need to drain the oil out of these things or you're going to end up blowing up a motor. As you can see, well, you can't see, but I have taken this engine and warmed it up for about 2 or 3 minutes, and that is to get that oil thinned out, but also to get all the crud, the sediment that settles to the bottom when these things sit for several hours, back up into the mix. It's now suspended in the oil, and I'm going to be taking this out right here. And what I want to do first is just take my oil drain, or my dipstick here. I'm going to take that and just unscrew it so I have a little bit of airflow going through there. I'm going to turn the wheel all the way this way. I'm going to grab an oil bucket, put it up underneath, and I'm going to remove that bolt right there, and that is going to allow the oil to drain out. So let's get going. All right, so I got a couple rags. All I'm going to need to do this job is a 7/16 wrench, box open. I'm just going to use the open end, but you could. That's a square bolt. It's a strange looking bolt head, but you could use a crescent wrench if you needed to, or even a pair of channel locks if you absolutely had to. But you don't want to short that out because the battery is hooked up. So I'm just going to go along here and break that loose. As you can see, I've got my bucket up underneath. I've turned my wheel. I can move that around as I need to. This will make a bit of a mess. That's just part of the game, unfortunately. And once we get that started, should be able to unscrew that pretty much by hand. And there we go. And as I said, this is pretty nasty. In fact, since I've owned this thing, I don't recall that it's ever been done that I can remember. I did do some of my other mowers, give them a tune-up when I first got them. For some reason, and I don't remember the reason why, this one just got missed. So next thing I'm going to do, and I'll fast forward the camera through this, I'm going to let this drain for a good 5 minutes. I want to get all that crud out of there, okay? All right, of course the rain's picking up, so I hope you can hear me with this lapel mic, but I've had it draining now for about 5 minutes, and you can see it's down to basically a drop or a triple. That's about as much as you're going to get out of there. So you can also pull this thing off to the side or raise that side up a little bit to help get the rest of the oil out, shake a little bit. I've already done all that, so I'm going to go ahead and reattach this now. You don't want to over tighten this, but you do want to tighten it. Obviously, if it were to vibrate loose, you'd have an engine that blew up relatively quickly. So you want to go ahead and make sure that it's tight without being over tight. And that ought to about do it. Next thing I'm going to do here is just clean up after myself. You can see there's a bunch of oil here. I don't want that getting on the belt. So I'm going to wipe up as much of that as I can. There we go. Now these motors were really, really bad about having an O-ring right here that would leak. They're held on by one single nut. So if you do see a lot of oil here and you've checked the tightness of this bolt here, well then the next step is to remove that and replace that O-ring. That is actually something I will cover in another video. But that's it for that part of the oil change. So now we're going to take our dipstick out. We're going to go ahead and wipe that down, clean that off. And luckily, and most of the mowers will have this, if for some reason it's missing, you'll have to look it up on the internet. But usually there'll be a sticker either inside the hood or on the panel here that tells you oil type and capacity. If it's not otherwise stated, SAE 30 weight is usually what you're going to run on these mowers, and this is no exception. This one does call for SAE 30 weight, and it's saying 48 ounces. So in order to refill this little thing, you're going to go ahead and get yourself a nice little funnel like that, and I've got relatively inexpensive here. And isn't this interesting? 48 ounces. Isn't that strange that they would have exactly the right amount in one quart or one of these little containers here, right? So I'll go ahead and pop that off. You don't want to overfill it because it is kind of a narrow neck, but I'll go ahead and top this thing off. And it's cold here today. I don't know if you can see my breath, but it'll take a little while for this oil to fold back in. Another reason why you're running the engine before changing the oil, that thick oil takes longer to go ahead and drain out. Might as well just go ahead and do it right the first time. That'll do it. I'll let that go ahead and drain back down. And our last step here is going to be to take this engine, start it up, or even better, don't start it. Just spin it over a little bit to let that oil circulate. Let it sit for another 30 seconds and check our oil. As long as it's between the two dots here, you're good to go. Hope I didn't have to dub over it because of the rain, but I had to get this work done. And I love sharing this kind of information with people out there that may not realize how easy it is to change the oil on your mower. And believe me, doing this twice a year can save this thing from blowing up more times than not. A lot of these mowers get sent to the junkyard because of improper care or no maintenance at all, really. So save yourself the $1,000 that it costs to replace a riding mower by doing a $20 oil change, or really it's about a $6 oil change on this since it doesn't need a filter, twice a year. That's it for today. I'll see you next time. Take care.